Okay.
People are saying you're looking good.
Thanks.
People.
Okay, so I'm going to start the conversation with three questions that we were asked. So, Hashir, you asked these questions. The first one was our opinion about intermittent fasting. Second one, what? Are you saying
Go
something,
ahead,
Afaz?
listening.
Okay. The second one was about the protein intake, and the third one was about the pre and post meal meal kind of timing. So the first one, intermittent fasting. I'm gonna ask Kiran to quickly talk about that and our opinion about it.
Hi, you guys. So, a lot of you guys asked about intermittent fasting, whether that's something that you guys should be doing. So, the answer to that is a bit nuanced. First, there are benefits and cons depending when you're training, what you feel like. So, I'll break it down for you. So, for somebody, if intermittent fasting is helping you stay within your calorie intake, you can go ahead and do it, right? But if you feel like your protein intake is not in place and you feel if you're working in the morning and if you feel like you don't have enough energy while you're working out, then it's the best idea. That's number one. Number two is that you're not just on your.
Kiran, we can hardly hear you.
Just 1 second, sorry. You guys, they can't hear me, so there's something. Okay. Start. Can you hear me now?
I think there's a lot of background noise.
Anushay, can you mute yourself, please? Basically, everyone. Yeah, everyone.
Guys, can everyone else be on mute, please?
Okay, I think everyone's. Vakas and Afaz, please. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, so as I was saying, intermittent fasting is very different for everybody. It is if it helps you stay within your calorie intake, if it's something that you need to give yourself some discipline, go for it, as long as you get your calories and your protein intake, right? How it doesn't work is if you are working out in the morning and you're eating at 12, so you don't basically get your pre and post workout meal, which could potentially impact your performance. In that sense, it's not the best idea because of the fact that you will not have your protein intake before your workout or your carbs, so you'll have very little energy, and then after that as well. So if you feel like your performance is being affected, you can't get your calories in, and you don't want to do it. The research is for and against both, but you basically have to see what works best for you. So if you can get your calories, you can get your protein, you don't feel tired, great. If not, then it may not work for you. That's pretty much it.
Speak about the protein question as well.
The protein. Oh yeah. So there was another question about taking protein in different intervals or having it together. So, so the research on is basically you don't necessarily have to break down your protein intake over time. You can potentially have all of your protein in one sitting as well and still get the same result. And people who are intermittent fasting will potentially be having their protein intake in a very limited time. So that will not really affect your progress or your protein synthesis in any way.
But tell them the better thing to do is to split your protein.
Obviously, ideally, you'd be able to split your protein all of the meals because that way you just have a more balanced meal each time. But obviously, life is busy and you may not be able to do that. So if the option is to not have your protein at all or fit it all in one meal, then you'd obviously fit it all in one meal. Any other questions?
Before and after meal.
Yeah.
So you want to answer that?
Talk about that. Ahmed, thank you for joining, mate. Please mute yourself. Appreciate it. Okay, can everybody hear me? If not, just, I don't know, write a message or something. Cool. So, Hashir, the third question you asked was about the intake, pre and post. So, if you guys go back to the welcome email that I shared with all of you. I'm just going to share the screen with you all.
He has a question, Harsha.
Yes, Asher, go for it.
No, he's waiting at Amber.
Okay, Asher's got a question. I'm reading it.
Okay.
Early morning run, workout, hard to have a pre-workout. Right.
It's just
So
related
that's a
to
very
the
good point.
pre-workout meal.
Understood. So that's a very good question because a lot of people do come early morning for the workout as well, and some people are running as well. Early workout, early morning workout on a fasted state, we recommend, or I would recommend, that the best thing to have is some sort, it may be BCCAs if you can. If you don't want to have BCCAs, you need to have something quick dissolving. So whether that's in liquid form or that's in some kind of quick dissolving carbohydrate. So something which we also shared in our screen, which is on the screen right now, if everyone can see. Pre-training, half an hour to 1 hour before, piece of fruit, toast with jam, fruit smoothie. These are just some examples. You don't necessarily have to have protein to it. This is just carbs or simple carbs, which are low in fat and fiber content. So what we advise, or what we think can help do, is that they can just act as fuel for your performance without giving you the crash right afterwards or in between your runs. One thing that, again, reading material has taught us, or education that we have done on nutrition has taught us, is that BCCAs can be helpful, and stuff like coconut water, ORS, like these kind of things with a little bit of sodium and salt content in them, because they can they can help you recover from the sweat that you're going to lose and the energy that you're going to lose there. So I hope that answers your questions, Harsher. Okay, now, guys, you're free to keep dropping messages on the meeting chat for any specific questions you guys have. Okay. What? Vakas has a what? Where is it? I can't see it.
Oh, he sent a direct message to someone. His question is, please update me about the check-in. I have not yet talked to anyone about my accountability reporting and not yet accounted.
Okay, Vakas, we've just taken this into notice. Someone will be reaching out to you with the information. Okay, so now that we've answered the 3 questions that we had from one of the members of the challenge, we're going to move into next week's goals and a little bit of a recap of this week. So this week, what we assigned everyone to do through our accountability coaches was that you had to log your food. You had to I'll come to this question. You had to log your food. You had to start to understand a bit better about your energy expense, and you had to kind of essentially become a bit more disciplined in your approach. What we have noticed through all the conversations in our group chats on different accountability groups is that almost everyone we now have a good idea of everyone's baseline calorie intake, right? And what has been happening through our groups is that we've started to make suggestions that has already, to some extent, made you guys go into deficit already. So maybe you haven't taken very drastic steps, but what you have done is, because of the conversations and the discussions we've been having with you on the groups and individually in person, you guys have been making better choices in your food intake and replacing your methods of cooking, which by default is going to reduce your calorie intake overall in the week, not in particular in the day. What you have also done this week is the expense of your calories has increased, or we have advised some of you to increase them, where people like Kiran, Nazia, and myself have advised you to stay back after class for 10 to 20 minutes and do some kind of light cardio, or increase your total steps in the day, which by default will start to act as a burner for more energy. So going to the whole debate that everyone's been having and asking is that when are we going into a deficit? Are we in a deficit? Are we in base? How do we go into a deficit? These are some of the ways these are some of the changes that are helping you guys to go into that phase. Now, here are some of the things that we are going to, or targets for the next week. Number one, your energy expense. Like I mentioned, you have to, or you are advised to burn more, correct? In order for you to burn more, everyone's coming for 4 days or 5 days to the group class, right? After the group class, number one solution to this is that after the group class, spend 10 to 15 minutes either going out in the parking lot if you're coming to the Clifton location and just walking, or jogging, or use one of the machines to do something as a light cardio. So what that will do is, by default, it will help you burn more calories. Number two, the protein intake that most of you are having, you have to try to increase that in your meals. You don't have to increase calorie intake in terms of more meals or in terms of more carbohydrates, but we have to try to increase the portion size of the protein. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. Number one is that you're already having 2 or 3 meals a day, which includes a breakfast, right? From the pool of people that have been talking to us, we have come to a conclusion that not everyone is having breakfast. So the first recommendation that we want you to do this week in order to increase your protein intake is to include breakfast in your diet. What you should eat in that breakfast is something your accountability coaches can advise you better, and they will. But that's one habit that we are recommending you develop for an increased protein intake. The second habit that we want you to develop is, if you are already having breakfast, then what you want to do is increase your protein intake overall. So whether it's in your breakfast or lunch or your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the protein intake has to go up. How? Now the question can come, how much more, right? So for that, I'll ask Kiran and Nazia to just quickly give you some basic guidelines of how you guys can do it and what that intake can look like. Do you guys want to do it, or should I just do it? You want? Okay. So protein intake can increase the, let's just keep it very simple. Okay. Just do it according to portion size. So whatever helping size that you have been doing this week, we now have a very good idea based on the pictures you've been sharing and based on what you've been logging. Just go back to your daily protein meal.
But in the town, we should mention them that अगर already इनका protein वो need कर रहा है, so they shouldn't increase the protein because they will increase the calories technically.
अगर प्रोटीन गोल मीट कर रहा है तो, बट अगर जो ज्यादातर लोगों के लिए नहीं अभी मीट कर रहा, उनको इंक्रीज करना है ना. उनको इंक्रीज करने के लिए गाइस just increase the portion size. ठीक है? जब जो भी, for example, if you've been having minced meat,
they can add the egg whites.
right? If you're having a minced meat में आपको अब पता है कि आप कितनी चम्मच डालते हो, 1 चम्मच और डाल दो. अगर आप, for example, if you're having eggs in the morning and you've been having 2 eggs, 2 full eggs, right? Or you've been having 2 eggs, 1 full, 1 egg white. Add an extra egg white, right? It's very small, minimalistic changes that you have to do, right? There are other things that, for example, when you want to have a snack, right? A lot of people have been asking us, I'm hungry in the afternoon, or I'm hungry at night before I go to bed. What should I have? I feel like having a snack. There are certain things that you can have for snacks like cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. You can have protein shakes. A lot of us are not having protein shakes, right? I know that it is something that takes a little bit of adjustment, and I know it also kind of puts a dent in your wallet, but maybe you can partner up with someone in your accountability group and say, guys, let's collectively buy a protein box and let's share the protein together. So maybe instead of one person buying the 25,000 rupee box, maybe 3 people can buy it together for this challenge, and every day you guys can just share a scoop with each other, right? That way you guys can increase that meal, post-workout, pre-workout, whatever it is. But bottom line is that we need to increase the protein intake. We will take your questions about specifics in the Q&A at the end. So 2 things. Number 1, increased energy expense, increased protein intake if you are not meeting your protein intake based on the macros you've been logging last week. The third thing that we are going to ask you to do. What was the third thing? I forgot. Steps ho gaye. Breakfast protein ho gaya. Okay. Weekend calories. Okay, listen guys. Let's cut through the bullshit. Everyone likes to splurge a little bit on the weekend, and that's perfectly okay. A lot of people have also been messaging, oh my God, can we have a cheat meal? Cheat meal kha le, dessert khana hai, right? Let's understand one thing which is very simple. Let's not complicate it. What we have to do is we have to look at the entire week. We don't have to look at every day. If you know that based on what you have recorded and based on the energy expense this week that you've been recording, you know that at 2000 calories per day, you will be in maintenance stage. Let's assume. If, for example, every day you are unable to reach 2000 calories for whatever reason, or you are burning more because of extra work that you're doing, at the end of the week, maybe you have some calories left that you can still consume, right? And maybe what you can do is you can consume them through a dessert, right? Or whatever that meal that looks like a reward for you. The other thing that you can also do is that you can also replace some of the calories with something that you're tempted to have. Not every meal has to have nutrition value, right? Based on the message that Nazia shared yesterday on the group as well, you can have a McDonald's meal and still meet your calorie goals, right? Maybe you're not going to get the maximum benefit nutritionally from it, but as long as you're still staying in your calorie key intake key limit, it's okay to have that pizza, right? You won't, nothing, kuch nahi hoga, right? If you feel like having like that cookie or having like that brownie, but you're not exceeding your calorie intake in order to match your goal, it's fine. You might not get the best nutrition value, but it's not like you are going to miss out on your goal. You'll be fine. On the weekend, a lot of people try to splurge, including myself. I do it this way where I'm like, I'm going to splurge on, let's say, a specific day where I know I have saved up a little bit of extra calories from the previous meals. So instead of having my regular 3 meals, I'll have 2 meals. And then my third meal, which I'll limit my meal intake, but I will keep some calories for my dessert. So that way my overall calorie is still in check, but I'm still eating what I want to eat. Okay? So that's the simplest way of looking at it, and that's how you should be looking at it as well. So don't go into some drastic changes that become a headache for all of you instead. The fourth thing before we open for Q&A is, again, weekend. A lot of us want, part of what our guilty pleasures are, alcohol, right? Or, just having a drink with dinner or whatever it is. Remember, those are also calories. And remember, it's the same as having that piece of cake, right? There's not much nutrition value in it, but there is calorie attached to it, right? So as long as you are, again, considering that glass of wine to be, or a glass of scotch to be in your total consumption for the day, it's okay, right? You won't be missing out on anything. Yes, there are going to be harmful effects if you overdo it. It's going to affect your sleep, it's going to affect your recovery, it's going to affect your growth, muscle growth, all of that. But that's a personal decision that you will have to live by and make. It's cool, right? You do you. Anything you guys want to add to this? Cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open the floor to the Q&A. So I'm going to go into the first question on the meeting chat group, which is Asma Javeri. Yes, when I go for a morning run, I can't do a pre. Okay, I believe I've already answered that. What's the deficit we should maintain to stay consistent and not crash?
That's different for everyone.
Yeah, so so go for it. Kiran, just
Afar, so your deficit is something that your question is that you want to be in a sustainable deficit, right? So abhi jo aapne is week ki calories kari thi, they were your maintenance calories. So now for week 1, our recommendation is basically that you go from your maintenance calories to a 200 or 300 calorie deficit, which is not a big change. You just make some substitutions and you get that deficit. So your diet doesn't change just drastically. You only make a few substitutions, like you go from full fat milk to low fat milk. Instead of having everyday ki chai, you have milk chai, right? And instead of using too much oil in your food, you just like bake it or grill it or shallow fry it. Those changes are the ones that you need to do right now, and those are the ones that will get you to a 200 to 300 calorie deficit, which will not make a big difference in your energy levels, and you will not crash.
right. So I can give you guys some specifics here, and this is going back to some of the conversations we had on the transformation group, that the accountability group. So, for example, there was someone who was having, they sent their breakfast meal, ठीक है? और उसमें ये था कि उन्होंने क्या किया था कि they had this granola bar, right? And they had 2 eggs, and they had a piece of bread, and they had, I believe they had like maybe they had black coffee or something, right? And what that log showed us was that the 2 eggs and the 1 piece of bread collectively was as many calories as that granola bar. So 2 eggs and 1 piece of bread was the same amount of calories as that 1 granola bar. However, the nutrition value in the 2 eggs and the piece of bread is far greater than that granola bar, right? Because you're going to probably get a higher intake of protein, a higher intake of fat or healthy fat than that granola bar, which is made in some factory with whatever additives in it. So these are some of the things that again, Kiran is suggesting, that these are some of the minor changes that week on week, through the tips and tricks that we are sharing on the accountability groups, will help you go into a deficit state, which will give you more nutritional value, but at the same time, also not exceed your calorie intake. And when combined this with sustainable energy expend methods that we are doing through our classes and the extra credits that we are suggesting, overall you will be in a deficit, but it'll be a sustainable deficit which will help you week on week burn more fat, back on lean muscle. So hopefully that makes a little bit, or puts things into further perspective. Right. Harsher, another question, another protein intake. Some studies say that beyond 1.5 grams kgs per day, there isn't much of a benefit, even if I'm doing heavy lifts. What's your view?
So,
नहीं ऐसे नहीं बोलना ना, सही से
Guys, we can't hear you.
I think it's fine now.
Hello, आवाज आ रही है?
Yes.
Okay.
Ari, bolo.
Okay, so the protein goal, it's dependent on the आपकी activity on the activity level कि आप पूरे दिन में कितना active हैं, ठीक है? And mostly 1.5 gram is too much for the general population because they are not training 2 times a day or 3 times a day. 1.5 or 2 grams जो है वो athletes लेते हैं. So I don't think so 1.5 grams should be taken by the general population. So and it also depends on कि आपकी activity level पूरे दिन में कितनी है. अगर you are not active that much, so between 0.8 to 1 gram will be enough for you guys. Okay.
Kiran, do you want to answer Vakas's question?
1500 calorie.
Yes.
Vakas, you asked a question about your calorie intake. So you're saying that you are unable to reach even 1500 most days, and if you're logging correctly or not. For this, once we sign you to your accountability coach, that person will be able to help you better. But if your fat intake is higher, then there's a good chance that you might potentially be going over 1500 calories without, and you may not be realizing it because the logging may not be accurate. But if you could share some of the food that you're eating, we could give you a better idea. And now that we're talking about this, a lot of people do tend to log incorrectly or choose calories that are not suited to your meal that you're eating. So my recommendation is that when you look at when you're choosing a food in MyFitnessPal, don't just look at the calories, go look at the protein, the macros as well, because sometimes they are a better indication of how accurate that entry is. There.
So,
Sorry, Vakas. So okay, so Vakas, the first thing is that जो आपकी हमने जो TDE का calculate, because you I think missed the first I think you missed the first session. So हमने एक TDE calculator दिया था. चाहिए उस calculator में हम that calculator basically guides you through everything. But right now your focus is not to eat not to focus on too much on other macros anyway. Your focus is to look at your calories and your protein intake, right? Fat and macros we'll get to at a later point. So just don't worry about too much what the app is suggesting, because वो वैसे generically बताता है. जो हमने calculator दिया था, focus on that.
on mute. Video भी on करो.
Okay, so Yusuf, your question is on.
Please explain cheat meals.
Yeah, there is no cheat meal concepts in this transformation thing. Everything you are eating, that should be in your calories. If you are eating, if you think the burger एक cheat meal है, so it is not. Burger should be fit in your calories. So the mindset behind the cheat meal a day or just a one meal shouldn't be add in this transformation challenge. The thing is that हम इस transformation challenge में जो है ना, हम अपना habit पे काम कर रहे हैं कि हम जो भी खा रहे हैं वो हमारी calories में fit होना चाहिए, ठीक है? So there is no cheat meal concept in this transformation. क्या है FFS
I also want to add to that, to what Nadia has just said, that food is very psychological for a lot of us. And when we kind of attach these things about cheating, then you will end up cheating a lot more on your diet because you think of it as good and bad. So we don't want to do that. Ideally, you should want to go into like a situation where you're eating 80% healthy, like good foods that are good for your body, and 20% food that is good for your soul. So if you want to have, like, if you want to be more restrictive to yourself and you think you have better discipline, if you eat like nutritious meals over the week, and on the weekend you want to kind of indulge in happy meals, for example, then you want to save calories for that and just be smart about it. So you don't want to think, oh, cheat meal karna hai mujhe. Just think about, okay, I want to save these calories for this food that I want to have, and just have it. and move on. That's it.
Can I add something to this? Actually, I don't want to add anything. Yeah, I think again, cheat meals. I agree. Don't look at these things as yaar ye cheat meal ho gaya, ye ho gaya. Just have like, again, just try to kind of keep that kind of whole concept about staying within your calorie goals and not kind of overdoing it, guys. I want to go up to a few questions. Asma said something. Essen, okay, I'm going to answer you. I've got around 9,563 calories remaining. Can I party tonight? Bro, if that's the number you're going for to give you a cue that you need to party, go for it. But that's a lot of calories left. Like, I don't understand. Are you 9,563? क्या कर रहे हो? कब हफ्ते से नहीं खाया? I don't think this is calculated correctly, mate. I feel like there's some typo here.
Yeah,
maybe
probably
there's
the 3 is extra.
No. He's said it again, and he said the
He
same
copied
number.
the same message.
So, Essen, maybe see if this is an accurate number, because that seems like a bit far-fetched, and we can talk about it afterwards. Any other questions, guys? Just unmute yourself and speak, please. Mine, Asma, can you just share your question?
Yeah, it is here. उसने पूछा था कि if I'm working out 5 days a week, I should do moderate activity, right, for maintenance, and then for next week reduce 200 calories to be in deficit.
Okay. I think because I am your accountability coach, we have spoken about this. You are in the moderate activity. Again, you can put a number to it and say, I'm going to reduce 200 calories. If you want to, if that's going to be helpful for you to achieve your goals, yes, you can do it, but do it in a manner where you're making smarter choices in your with your meal replacements rather than eliminating meals. So things like, instead of using canola oil in the food that you're making, maybe use butter, right? Or maybe use an air fried option. And no, you don't have to switch all the meals that way. Maybe out of the 6-7 days in the week where your food is being made in that oil, you can make 2 meals from air fried thing, and by default overall in the week your calories will be lower, as you were saying that I want to reduce it. So make sustainable, smarter choices on a daily basis that will eventually lead you into a calorie deficit overall in the week, right? So again, this is what we are suggesting and sharing. And as far as the suggestions are goes on a meal-to-meal basis, that's what the accountability groups are for the feedback on the particular meals. Any other question that, I hope that answers your question, Asma. Any other question that anyone wants to take before we can end the meeting, guys? Last question. You can just unmute yourself and right. So before we break for this call, stay active on the group, stay active on the groups, stay active on the accountability. Don't, I know that you've done the logging for this week, but the logging is a great way to help you keep in your, or be disciplined and keep you in your goals, align you in your goals. Stay active on the groups, use each other as motivation, increase your protein intake this week in your meals somehow, either by introducing a breakfast or introducing more portion of protein in your existing meals. I've given you options such as maybe adding a snack, such as in the form of a protein shake. If you are unable to purchase a protein shake on your own, combine it with your accountability group and purchase it together. and then spend some extra time post your session to help you burn more calories. That's all we have for this week. Hope you guys found it helpful. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Oh, by the silly menu.